Let's do a quick audio check and let's make sure everybody out there or anybody that's out there can actually hear me. If I can get a thumbs up from anybody, and anybody, just making sure we have audio here. About to get started. I'm kind of excited about this because what's our topic? I know, shame on me, right? I'm just kidding, everybody. I know what a topic is. I've tried to modify it a little bit. Partly because I've been getting a lot of questions in 2021 here, the latter part of the year. These questions seem to continue to come up, and I wanted to try to make today's meeting as current as possible. So, and when I walk like way closer, am I like messing up the camera here too, is my next question. We all good with that?
Yep, no, you're all good.
Okay, perfect. And our audio, we're all good? I got a thumbs up from anybody?
You're a little quiet, but I think this is as loud as it goes.
A little quiet, okay. Want to see if we can mess with anything there? Or should I just talk louder? Is that a little bit better? So, before we get started, here's one of the things that I'd like everybody to do that's online. Take a second because I'm going to be giving out some information today. I'd love for you, and this is going to be on a podcast later on, so if you are hearing this just audio, I will encourage you to go to YouTube and watch this because I've got my little chart here and it's going to be drawing some diagrams that will probably make no sense when I'm just talking audio. But take this moment and grab a piece of paper and pen. I encourage you to get a piece of paper and pen and make sure that you've got something to write with because you're going to want to take some notes on this one. Okay, double checking on our audio. I'm seeing that she's messing with our audio again. Just want to make sure we're good before we move forward.
Did our last adjustment that I can do, so
Okay.
Go ahead and test and we can see how that sounds.
So test 124.7.
Oh yes, you sound much better now.
Okay, perfect. All right. So if you've got your pen and paper, this is fantastic because we're going to be talking about buyer consultations, seller consultations, but I'm not going to talk about the consultation within a traditional, hey, we've got a buyer's consultation or we have a seller's consultation, and these are kind of the steps that you go through or the things that you want to include in that buyer or seller consultation. Really what I want to talk about today is kind of the meat and potatoes behind it and help the agents or help anybody that's watching this develop some skills on how to actually take advantage or be as productive as possible in that consultation. Because right now our industry is so competitive that we're kidding ourselves when we're in front of a seller for a seller consultation, or even more so in front of a buyer for a buyer's consultation, that they're not talking to or have the opportunity to speak to several people on the same subject. So it's how do we make sure that we're converting and being able to get them to the next level and actually work with us. And when I say this and I talk about this, if you heard me say the word skill, I want to make sure that you guys understand that everything that we're talking about today is a skill. Now, some of us might be a little bit better at it than others, which is okay. But my point to this is that with a little bit of practice, a little bit of rehearsal, and doing it over and over and over again, you can get better at it. Getting better at it changes your results, basically changing the number of transactions that you can do over a yearly basis and things like that, and becoming better at what we do. So it's important to understand we're going to be talking about skills. I'm going to talk about digging deep into your conversations with people. I'm going to be talking about the yellow light, red light, green light in this conversation. I'm going to be talking about the soft close. I'm going to be talking about a weak close versus a strong close. I'm going to be talking about what I call GC and gaining control of a situation, the brick wall, when we're introduced with a brick wall, when we're having a conversation or something's going on and they've put that brick wall up, whether or not they're aware of it or they're not aware of it. I had a situation yesterday where somebody walked by my office here in the office and I had a brick wall up, physically had a brick wall up because I got a shipment in from Amazon and the boxes were so big they were sitting on my desk. And somebody walked by and was actually looking to see if I was in the office, and the boxes actually covered me up so they couldn't tell if I was in the office. But what was interesting about that was how they handled it. And in real life, when we come up with a brick wall, so often we look at that wall and we stop, and she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She looked around the brick wall, or she looked over the brick wall. And part of what we're going to talk about today is how we can get around that brick wall or look over the brick wall to actually get to the actual conversation with the person and make sure that we're having the conversation with the right people at the right time. I'm going to talk about FBT. If anybody knows what FBT is, please let me know. But basically, feature benefit, and then taking that feature benefit. Good morning, Bianca. Taking that feature benefit and actually transferring that and tying that into what's going on. Because when we're in a buyer's consultation or we're in a seller's consultation, we should have about 3 to 4, 4 to 6, 5 to 7, kind of depending on the situation, feature benefits that we are going to be talking about so that the people understand who we are and what's going to happen. Now, in reality, here's what happens, and I'm going to give you some examples of how it happens most of the time in reality. We go feature, 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 and then we don't discuss the benefits, and then the people look at us like, what the heck did you just say? And what I mean by that is, okay, if I'm in a seller consultation or if I'm in a buyer's consultation, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and then we move on, and we think that the people actually understand what we're talking about versus when we talk about a feature as an individual. You know, one of the features of in our seller's presentation or seller's consultation today, when we're talking about it, one of the things that we're going to be doing are taking we're going to have professional photography. And the benefits to professional photography are such, 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 and such. And how this benefits you is we know that a property that has professional photography tends to sell quicker and tends to sell for more money. Now, I can take that and tie that back into a conversation of, is more money important to you? Because in most cases, yes, the individual is trying to get as much money as possible. Even if more money is not important, time may be important. Because remember, that feature was photography. The benefit was higher sales price and probably a quicker sale. So, we're going to talk a little bit about feature benefit. If you guys have questions in this whole process, please let me know, and Chantel behind the scenes will also let me know if there are any questions. But getting started, hopefully everybody has a pen and paper. Why did I ask you to have a pen and paper? Because one of the first things I want to talk about is gaining control, okay? So, what did I do there when I asked everybody when I got started here to get a piece of paper and pen? That's putting me in a position of control in the situation and making sure that you're present in what's going on here. So if I'm in a listing presentation or a seller consultation or a buyer consultation, if we get started, if we're meeting face to face or we're doing this over the phone, regardless of what the situation, if we're face to face, bring 2 pieces of paper with you or 2 pads of paper with you and an extra pen with you, and hand that over to the other party and let them know that they're going to want to take some notes, because the information that we're going to share is important. What does this do? It gives you a couple of indications right off the bat. They say, no, I don't need a piece of paper and pen. What are you working with? Okay? And another example I will give. For those of you that, I'm a little bit of a foodie. I like to go out to restaurants. Chantel, I don't know if you like to go out to restaurants, but I enjoy going out to restaurants. And the server, waiter or waitress, whoever it may be that's helping us, usually see one of 2 things. They will either come to you with a piece of paper and pen, or what I'm seeing more often nowadays, where the restaurants are trying to be a little bit more classy or whatever. I'm not sure of the reasoning, but they walk up to you with no paper, no pen, and they memorize your order, okay? Does it feel good when they walk up to you and memorize your order? Sure, if they get it right. But the real question is, for me is, I actually feel like I'm more important when they actually have that piece of paper and that pen. And when I'm saying I would like this, I would like that, and this, and I'm giving my order, they're actually taking notes and writing things down. I feel more comfortable. Now, I understand that the restaurant may be trying to put on a certain persona or image by saying, hey, I've got the ability to memorize your order. Yeah. So Two true stories. Went out to lunch yesterday. We put in an order, and we had a specific order, and the gentleman took his piece of paper out and his pen, and he wrote everything down, and we were happy campers because we got exactly what we asked for. And 2 days prior to that, we were out to lunch and put in an order, and the server at that particular restaurant pulled the "I got this memorized" and forgot half the order. So we ordered 3 things, and well, not quite half. We got 2/3 of it. 2 of the 3 things came out. And then I had to remind her, say, hey, what about this item? And, oh, sorry, messed up, got forgotten, this and that. And no big deal, it got corrected. But it kind of changed the whole dynamic of the situation there, because now, for us, we wanted everything at the same time, and we didn't get everything at the same time. So when I'm asking and gaining control, and I say that little simple thing of getting a piece of paper and pen, we want them to write notes. At the same time, you want to write notes, okay? You want to be able to be present with the person that you're having a conversation with, so you should be taking notes and they should be taking notes. And I'm going to draw, this is my little drawing here.
If you can try and write a little bit bigger for the people on their well, that's not a letter.
I'm
They
good.
were just saying that your letters were a little small on the phone. So
GC, got it. Okay, so GC stands for gain control. And the thing that I was talking about as far as gaining control was piece of paper and pen, and why it was necessary to gain control. So here's step 1 when we're meeting somebody in a consultation, one of the first things that we should do even prior to gaining control. And I call that my pre-stalking. And what do I mean by pre-stalking? That I should, if I know the information about somebody, if I'm going to be meeting with Chantel prior to a meeting, whether it's a buyer consultation or a seller consultation, if I'm going to be meeting with her and I've got her information, and it can be I have first name, last name, it can be I have an email address, it can be I have a cell phone number, whatever the case may be. Google that. Google Chantel. Google if you have her email address. Google that. You want to look up the person and see what things you might have an interest with them, what are common with them, what things that you have in common, because if these are things that you can bring up at a later day and time, you'll be in a situation to start to gain trust with those individuals and create a connection with them. It's a true statement. We will listen to people that we like, but we will make purchases or we will work with people that we trust. And in order to gain that trust, we have to get beyond like. So having a conversation with somebody and saying some things that they understand starts that likability, but we have to take it from like to trust. And when we take it from like to trust, and my little diagram here, what this diagram is this guy up here is what I like to call your opportunity to close. So when you're in this world here, anywhere from here to here, you're in your opportunity to close. And when we first meet somebody, we're here. And what's important to understand is here, this spot is where we've actually gone beyond our opportunity to close. You've all experienced this sometimes where we have oversold something or have gone too far and actually got them to lose interest in what was going on because we talked too much or we gave too much information and we passed the opportunity and the people disconnected with us, and then all of a sudden they're not interested. So what's important to understand is everything we're talking about, gaining control, starts here. I do my pre-stock so I can figure out and try to learn a little bit more about Chantel before I'm going to meet her, so that if we have something in common that I can bring that information up or work it into the conversation so that we can create a connection. And any connection that I can create, I'm able to move up this ladder here till I get to the point where I can actually start to ask for the business or create that close, whether we're creating a listing contract or a buyer-broker agreement and a buyer consultation. We want to get to this world right here. So hopefully I'm making sense. Chantel, am I making sense so far? Awesome. Perfect. Okay. So now what happens is when I'm here in the beginning, I talked about it earlier. We'll put it here. My BW, my brick wall. I can build a brick wall there if you like. Okay. It's bad tic-tac-toe brick wall. So I have a brick wall, and this brick wall can be something that was put up intentionally, can be put up unintentionally. The person that you're having a conversation with may or may not be doing it and may or may not even be aware of it. But you, when you're in the situation, have to be able to read that situation and understand that when you do have a brick wall that's up, how can you get around that brick wall and start to create trust? One of those things is finding out what your objections are right off the bat. Okay? And I say this because usually if you get an objection in the very beginning, if I start my conversation with Chantel in the very beginning and we handle any objections or I ask about any objections or concerns, usually anything that I get before we start is legitimate. An example would be if we're meeting with a buyer and we're in a buyer consultation and I ask Chantel, so Chantel, you just started looking for properties. Tell me a little bit about, tell me some concerns that you might have. Chantel says, well, you know what? I understand that the market's absolutely crazy. My friend was in the market and they stopped looking because they made 25 offers and they didn't get any of those offers accepted. And I'm concerned that we're going to be wasting our time and we're not going to be ready to do this. Now, she gives me that right off the bat. That's a legitimate objection. And that's a brick wall. She may not even realize that that's a brick wall that she's got put up. And that's something that I'm going to have to address. Now, you get those types of things after you've created a presentation. I call those kind of like BS objections. Those are sometimes people just don't want to do business. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe they don't trust you. They don't know how to tell you. So they're just making things up in order to get you to go away. So that happens. But the whole situation here is when I have a brick wall, how do I get around that brick wall and how do I start to create trust and build that trust? Okay, so one of the ways that I do, okay, I call it dig deep, okay? DD, dig deep, write that down. What do I mean by digging deep? So I just asked Chantel a question, and one of my questions was, what are you concerned about? Are there any concerns? And she mentioned, well, my friend such and such went to go try to buy a house, and they made 25 offers, and none of those offers got accepted. Or, I'm concerned that the prices are going up too fast, and I'm not going to be able to get into the market quick enough. Too often, here's what normally happens. We'll ask the client that question, they'll answer it, and then we'll move on to another question. And then they'll answer that question, and then we move on to another question. And they answer that one, and we move on to another one. When I say dig deep, stay with the topic. So in this case, if Chantel was concerned about the market moving too quickly and the prices going up, I want to stay there. I want to start to dig a little bit deeper into that and get a better understanding of what she's thinking and what's going on in that particular situation so that she has an opportunity to elaborate on that. That does a couple of things. That lets her know that I'm paying attention. That also gives her an opportunity to really express herself in something that's important to her and making sure that I understand that. Okay? When we dig deep into these conversations, and little heads up, people, this doesn't just work for sales, this works in relationships too. So try it with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, husband, your wife. It will work all the same. You want to start to dig deep in those questions. And I actually almost think of it that way. Think of it as an intimate conversation that you're having with somebody that you care about and you really want to learn more information or get more information from them or better understand them. It goes back to 7 highly effective, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the principles in there is to seek to understand the other person first before being understood. And we do that by asking questions and digging deep into those questions. Once we can do those things and we have a better understanding, we can better serve those people and serve that situation so that we understand what's going on. So you want to dig deep into those questions, okay? Chantel, any questions so far?
It does not look like it. You're good.
I'm good. Okay. Is everything making sense to anybody? Am I making sense? Because I know I'm supposed to be doing buyer consultations, seller consultations, but I really wanted to, I'm hearing so often right now is I'm having the scenarios that I gave with Chantel is I'm having problems getting my offers accepted. I'm having problems securing this listing. There's so much competition that's out there right now. I get that. And part of being able to overcome that is developing those skills and understanding those skills. Here's a skill that I'm learning. Trying to stare at 2 cameras at the same time and have a conversation with basically myself. So this is a skill that takes some practice that I am trying to do more often so that I can get better at it. All right.
You're making complete sense.
Now I'm making complete sense, okay? So in this situation, as we're working our way up this ladder in our consultation, I talked about what I call the soft close, and we'll call it the SF, and there's a TS, okay? So TS, that's a trial close. Soft close is another method or another way of actually closing to eliminate that weak close, okay? So in a trial close, you're in a situation where you're actually trying to say something that's going to be that creates a close to give you an indication of whether or not you're done or not in the conversation. So I'll give you an example. If I was on a listing presentation with Chantel and we're having a conversation and I just throw out a left field, if we were going to be bringing the photographer in, is are Mondays, Wednesdays, or the weekends a better day for you? And if she answers the question, well, Saturdays, Saturday or this Saturday would be great. That's a trial close. That's also an indication to me that I'm in this world up here. And I don't really need to say or do anything else, and we can start to move forward and start to handle paperwork and things like that at that particular point. Now, if she has a question about that, then we know that we're still here, okay? Soft close. Give you an example of a soft close. Well, let me give you an example. And I do a lot of role play situation. And here's what I will tell you. Secret to everybody that's watching this and knowing what your competition is doing. So if I were to ask, I'm going to say if I were to ask 100 agents how they close at the end of their presentation and said, go ahead and close and tell me what you say next, I will tell you that probably 97 out of 100 of those people will say these words. What do you think? Those are the actual words. Chantel looked at me and said, that doesn't make sense to me. That's the actual close that 97 out of 100 people actually use. What do you think? You get done presenting everything, talking about your marketing, talking about what you're going to do for them as your buyer's agent, get them pre-approved, whatever the case may be. And what you do is you finish that with what do you think? And you know what's going to happen? Same thing that'll happen if I ask you, what do you think right now? What everything I'm saying is, I'm going to get an honest answer. But I'm setting myself up to receive an objection right off the get-go, okay? So soft close would be an example of, hey, Chantel, we've gone over a lot of information right now. Let's pull out our calendar and let's take a look, because our next steps are going to be to schedule, if we're doing a buyer consultation, to schedule a time to meet with the lender and talk with the lender so that we can get pre-approved and make sure that we have that in place, okay? Chantel takes the action and actually pulls out her calendar and says, well, I can do it on this day or I can do it on that day. Now I know where we're at. And again, I've actually just asked for the business to move forward, but I haven't asked her, what does she think? Okay? Does that make sense? Thank you. So Chantel's I have an audience of 1. So I keep looking at her looking for confirmation. I have an audience of 10 out there. So do me a favor, if I'm making sense and this is actually resonating with you, I would appreciate it, because trying to grow, share, do something with this and spread the word, and maybe somebody else will listen that can get some benefit from this. I would appreciate that, and so give it a like, give it a share, throw it out there and let some people know that, this crazy guy Nestor's standing up here in front of a camera and talking about who knows what, right? Okay. Okay, let me look at my notes here real quick. What else I wanted to talk about? Okay, let's talking about building trust. How do I?
Switch the page.
I can switch the page?
Yeah, there you go.
I kind of like my page.
I mean, if you want to keep your
Yeah, I kind of like my page. It makes no sense. Yeah, makes sense to me. But, okay. So let's talk about building trust. How do I build trust with somebody? Okay? I talked about it earlier. If I'm doing my pre-stalking and finding out a little bit of information about them and what they're about, I can have that conversation to try to build trust. How else do I build trust? And examples in what we do in our industry in building trust is association, who we're associated with. And I'll give you an example, okay? One of the ways to build trust is to build an association with something or someone that is reputable. An example would be in our industry, I'm currently with a company called RE/MAX, okay? Known worldwide. The second that I say that, and I am backed by the company of RE/MAX, I have associated myself and built trust based on that. Now, if someone has had a bad experience with RE/MAX in general, or any other company that I would pick here, then they might have, I may have gone the other direction. But how else can I build trust? If I'm talking about my buyer consultation, my lender such and such is with such and such company and has been doing business for 20 some odd years and has a successful track record of this, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm associating myself with that particular lender and that company as well, and again, building trust with that individual. So building trust, one way to build trust with somebody is who I associate myself with regard to our transaction. And this is our stager, our photographer, my photographer. I had an interesting conversation with my photographer yesterday because he and I went out to lunch and we were talking about the concept of houses are selling so fast right now, people don't really need to take pictures, and the iPhone, and we hear agents saying, hey, my iPhone takes fantastic pictures and this and that. And if you work with a professional photographer, you'll understand that there's a little bit more than pulling out your iPhone, taking pictures of a particular property, and there are a lot of other things that can be done to make that property present itself in its best capacity. Staging necessary, okay? Because the house is going to sell regardless of what we do, putting it on the market right now, and things are selling fast. Is staging necessary? Well, just like professional photographies, the benefit of staging is the property will sell for, statistics show that the property will sell for more money and will sell quicker, okay? So again, we take those features, those benefits, and we go to, what were we talking about? Building trust. Sorry. Chantel looked down, and when she looks down, I lose my train of thought. Sorry. It's almost like I need to hand her another piece of paper and say, take notes, so I know she's with me. That's me gaining control of the situation again, right? Okay, she's with me now. Any questions out there? No questions. Okay, so another technique that I want to talk about, or another situation, or another skill, I guess, that I want to talk about is red light, yellow light, green light. Okay? And I always equate this to driving, okay? So, if Max, who's coming by here, is driving down the road and he gets to the intersection, and as he's approaching the intersection, sees a green light, and that light turns yellow, what is more than likely going to happen? Chantel's afraid.
Are you wanting me to answer?
Sure!
Gas.
You're going to step on the gas is exactly right. So the majority of the people, when they are approaching an intersection and they actually see the light turn from green to yellow, speed up. And this carries over into everything that we do. And what I am encouraging you to do is actually do what the yellow light is intended for us to do, and that's slow down and start to come to a stop. Okay? So, and I get it. Sometimes we use our judgment of, hey, that side of the intersection is better than this side of the intersection. But in this example, Often when we're having a consultation or we're having a conversation with somebody, we get those yellow lights. And too often we speed up through those yellow lights instead of slowing down and having a better understanding. Remember, it's all about building trust, gaining control, digging deeper. And if I take that yellow light and I speed up, am I digging deeper into the situation? Am I keeping control of the situation? Or am I putting myself in a situation where that brick wall is just getting bigger and bigger and I'm not working my way around it? Okay? So, whenever we see a situation like that, we want to slow down. And give you an example in real life situation, commissions. What do you charge? And you want to acknowledge it. Whenever we're getting an objection, we want to acknowledge the objection. Then we usually want to create some type of pivot to be able to go back to the actual conversation to, again, gain control, dig deep and build trust. But when that question comes, often, traditionally, well, you know what, when we get to the end of the conversation, we'll talk about that. Well, if that was important to them, they're not going to like that answer, and they're not going to be able to focus on everything else that you're talking about. So you're not going to give them any value, and they're not going to have a better understanding of why your commissions are what your commissions are. So I would argue that that's the perfect time to slow down and have a conversation about that. And now, here's part 2 of that, and when I was talking about pivoting is how we answer those questions. So we're going a little advanced here, but typical way of answering the questions, I charge this and then we justify it. That's what I tend to see a lot. But I'll give you another approach to this. Our commissions are, you can pick whatever number it is that you want to, whatever you want to say. But then, if you just simply add another question onto that, you can actually take the conversation in a comfortable place. An example is, Chantel asked me, what are your commissions? Or, I'm concerned about the commissions that you're going to charge. Oh, I can appreciate that, Chantel. We charge 5% or 5.5%. Is the amount of money that you're going to net out of the property a concern for you, or it sounds like that's important to you? Okay, so what did I just do there? I answered the question, but that slight little change of creating a pivot, and the pivot is, I'm still talking money, but now I've taken it to the net of the property and the proceeds versus the percentage. And she'll come back and she'll have a conversation with me, but in doing so, I'm really trying to have the conversation about what's really most important, and that's the total number. Because at the end of the day, that's what's most important, is what's the total number and how am I going to obtain that total number. And if we are bringing value to the table, they're going to be okay paying us what we want if they get what they want. Okay? Does that make sense? Give me a yes. That's for you, Chantel. Just give me a yes, even if it doesn't make sense. Yes. Perfect. All right. So, wow. What the heck happened here? Okay, I'm going to recap everything that I talked about, and I went pretty fast today, 30 minutes, so this one's going to be a little bit short today. So I went pretty fast today. I'm having a consultation with a buyer, I'm having a consultation with a seller. What is it that I want to do first? First thing I probably want to do is I want to pre-stock. Pre-stock means I want to look up some information. They do it to us, they want to know who we are, so they Google us. We should be Googling them. We should look up who they are, what they're about, and things like that. No, I don't mean stalk them in the sense of like get creepy or anything like that, but learn some information about your client that you're about to work with. You want to know about them. So that's fair, okay? Gain control of the situation. One of the simplest ways to gain control of the situation, okay, everybody, I'm about to give you a big tip here. Make sure you write this one down. That's how you gain control. Pen and paper. You're going to want to write this down, get some pen and paper. That's how we gain control of the situation. Look for those brick walls early and figure out how we can get around those brick walls by digging deep. Not just asking surface questions and stopping there and going on to the next question. What's most important to you, highest, selling your house in the quickest amount of time or the most money? That's a great question that needs to be asked. But what questions can be asked piggyback into that so that you can get more information and get more in depth with your answers when you're having a conversation with people so that you can build trust with them. Okay? Then you take that to the soft close or the trial close, basically. And you go to those two things. Remember, seek to understand first before you're understood. That's it in a nutshell. When you get here to the point that you can finish your conversation, which is like I believe where I'm at, actually, I can ask that question right now. If you like what I'm saying, if there's anybody out there who likes what I'm saying or who thinks that, this is making sense or this is resonating with you, give a like, just drop a little note in the thing. So now, there's a little bit of a delay that's going on there, but if I get a note in there, that tells me I'm here, right? That was, boom, okay? Now, if I'm here, the question is how long can I stay here before I get here and you disconnect with me and log off, right? Okay, so that's it. That is it in a nutshell. Questions? If there are no questions out there, I am cutting this one short. I'm saying thank you very much.
Fran is asking for an example of red light.
An example of a red light. It's a great question, Fran. Give you an example of a red light in a buyer consultation. You know what? I think let's do it in buyer consultation. An example of a red light is okay, I'll give you a real life situation. Got a call yesterday on a property, and the property was listed at $775,000, and the client said, we don't want to go above $750, but we're interested in this property, which the property is listed at $775. Okay. Well, in this particular market, we know that the majority of the things are selling for a whole lot more than asking price on the norm, and this particular property is also priced $25,000 below the last two comps. So in my mind, I've got a red light when the guy says, I'm $750. Okay? Now, what would people do in a green light situation like this or a yellow light where they're speeding through? Let's write the offer at $750 and let's see what we get. Okay? Fran, we also know that we're going to probably not get anything, and we may not even get a counter offer on a situation like this. Have we done our client a service? Have we done ourselves a service? Or have we just wasted everybody's time? So this would be an example of a red light where I would take a step back and say, hey, let's have a conversation about the market and really where it's at. What's going on the properties that are priced correctly, and what determines a property that's priced correctly, and what determines a property that's not priced correctly, and how does that look? And when we're in that situation, what tends to happen? Okay? Now, are you really stuck at 750? Or was 750 just a number that you had thrown out there? Or is 750 a number that you're throwing out there because that's where you're comfortable, or that's the max that you can afford? Where's that number coming from? Have we taken into consideration HOA dues, interest rates, things like that? Have we spoken to a lender kind of where, this is where I'm digging deep to figure out where this 750 and that thought process came from. Does that make sense? Chantel says it makes sense, so I'm hoping it makes sense for you as well, Fran. Great question, and thank you. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So I'm going to give it another 30 seconds and see if any other questions come up. And I'm going to ask you, did anybody make a comment when I said, comment here? I'm afraid to ask sometimes.
It's hard because there's a delay, so they just come in, so it's hard to tell.
I hear you.
And Fran said yes, it did make sense.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Fran. And thank you, everybody else. And again, I will ask, if this is something that you find value, please, you will help me by sharing this. Share it on your social media. Give us a like. Drop us a comment. All of that helps in us and helps us and gives me feedback on how I can help you guys. If there's something after the fact or you're listening to this after, feel free to drop a comment in there as well. I do check the feed and come back for the next few days and check the feed, so I'll be able to answer any questions for you. But thank you again. All right? All right. I'm going to log off.